Support for the Lancast is provided by WindingWay Books and Pennsylvania College of Art and Design.
Welcome to the Lancast. I'm David Moulton.
And I'm Keith Slesser. This week we had a conversation with the founders of ProVolve Entertainment, Eric Brobst and Michael McHenry.
During our conversation, we learned a little bit about the company's beginnings.
When Eric and I talked about putting together a DJ company, it was a combination of his practical experience and my sort of technical experience with the gear and, web design and stuff like that. So between the two of us, we had like a really good thing. So it started like many good businesses do over a beer and late night talks with friends.
Later we hear about some of their more funny experiences DJing.
As I'm out there on the dance floor with my wireless mic and I'm carrying like all of these awkwardly shaped bags of candy, I drop all of them while I'm talking and I'm like, oh my god, like right into the microphone, and I'm like,
And it was a very Christian crowd too, and
yeah,
and like anybody who knows Eric wouldn't have thought anything of it, but it just happened so
and
fast.
And it was really loud. Like
it was like one of the loudest things that night.
Yeah, for some reason it got really loud right when I was like, oh my god. And it was just, I dropped candy.
Enjoy the conversation. Well, Mike, Eric, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How's it going?
Let's start off with why the two of you got into DJing. Let's do that individually. Eric, if you don't mind, go ahead.
All right. My interest in music has been a lifelong, basically, obsession. I've always played music for family get-togethers. I always recorded music off of the radio with a little cassette player, recorder. And when I was about 15, 16, I decided that I want to go into broadcasting. And I started working at F97 when I was 16 and worked there until I was about 22. And about when I was like 17, I was thrown into a DJ gig at Hershey Park Stadium. They were having like an all-nighter for high school kids. And the guy that was actually DJing it, he was also an on-air guy. He had to go to another part of the park and kind of do a contest on the other end of the park. So we were in the middle of like an all-out dance party with like hundreds of high school kids. And he was like, well, we can't stop now. So he kind of just threw me into it. And he was like, just play anything. And I was like, well, what do? I don't know how to do this. And he's just like, you'll figure it out. And he just left. So that's how I literally just got thrown into DJing, and I loved it. And other gigs that we had at the station, I always asked to DJ. So eventually I started kind of branching out from doing station gigs. I would do like Sweet 16s, weddings, stuff like that. And then eventually I decided to start my own company. And I worked alone for about 4 or 5 years as DJ Eric Entertainment, very original. And then Mike and I have been friends since college, and one night, over a few drinks, we both decided to join forces and start a company together, and it's been awesome ever since.
How about you, Mike?
I was born into a very musical family, but we grew up in a really small town, and I was the guitarist in a couple rock bands, and eventually the school, I guess, ran out of money, and they asked me in my senior year if I would help DJ like one of their school's dances. And we didn't have like a DJ setup or equipment or anything, but we did have some laptops and some guitar half stacks, so we just plugged into those and did it, and it was a lot harder than I thought it would be. But it paid, and after that I met Eric at Millersville, and while I was working at Millersville, I worked at Guitar Center at the Harrisburg, Lancaster, and Cherry Hill locations, and my job there was really to set like DJs up with equipment. So I kind of got like a ground floor understanding of what was required there, and I did some stuff for family and friends sort of on the side, but I didn't really get back into it in any big capacity until he and I started talking about putting together a real organization, so to speak.
Cool.
Yeah.
So how did you said you guys met at Millersville?
Mm-hmm. Actually, it's funny because we met, we kind of like connected over guitar. Like we connected about music before we connected about anything DJ related, because we were presenting, posters, and he and I both had like, a guitar reference on like our projects and everything. And we had like a little conversation about that, but our now wives had classes together too. So we kind of, solidified a friendship around their friendships. So yeah, we did meet at Millersville.
So you guys were getting gigs on the side already, and you guys just sort of merged along with. You have 2 other people that are part of your team or whatever too, right?
Yeah, doing that.
Yeah, that was getting the 2 extra guys is sort of a long time. That's a recent thing. When Eric and I talked about putting together a DJ company, it was a combination of his practical experience and my sort of technical experience with the gear and web design and stuff like that. So between the 2 of us, we had like a really good thing. So he had some gigs in the books, and we put something together, and we started we knocked out like 4 gigs in the last quarter of 2009. Yeah. So it started like many good businesses do over a beer and late night talks with friends.
Yeah.
So when you first start coming together to do things together, what kind of roles do each of you take?
Well, the whole reason that we started the company was we were pretty much opposites in terms of DJ. Like, I am a complete idiot when it comes to technical, plugging things in, troubleshooting why this microphone isn't working or why this channel isn't working, and Mike is a genius about that. And I had the experience of being on the mic, emceeing, DJing,
totally.
Mixing. So we were kind of, at the beginning, we were both opposites. Like, he wasn't...
I wasn't confident on a microphone really at all at that point, and we tried, but it was just clear that Eric was like, and still is, like the master MC as far as that goes.
But we've both kind of merged into one. Like, I'm starting to learn a lot more about technical stuff and troubleshooting, and Mike's been... It's actually a few times that we've been double booked where I had to do my own gig and Mike had to go his own way. Like, we've both kind of, had to learn the technical and the emceeing and the DJing. So we've both pretty much have turned into the same person when it comes to DJing.
Yeah, when we started, we kind of filled each other's blind spots or, the gaps. And, over the past 2 years, we've kind of, used each other's experience to fill in those gaps so that, even separately, we're still ProVolve, which is kind of cool.
Now, your music selection that you do for when you do that, I've always been curious when DJs come. Do you have like a list, like weddings, like this is the list I do, or plus, whatever anybody asks for, 16 parties, you have this list, or how do you pick your music?
Well, usually, depending on the style of gig that we're doing, usually I'd say 85% of every gig we ever do or have done is a wedding. So with weddings, there's always go-to songs. Every DJ has these songs up their sleeve. Like, when all else fails, if you put these 5 songs or 6 songs on, everybody's going to dance no matter what, unless you're DJing like at a funeral or something. So, but usually before we do a wedding, we've met with the couple, we've met with the bride and groom, and they've said specifically, these are the songs that we want at these times for these types of events throughout the reception. And lately, a lot of our lists have been do not play lists. Mm-hmm. So a lot of brides are saying no more chicken dance, no more electric slide. We normally don't play that type of music anyway, but brides like to make it known that they don't want Cotton Eye Joe or all these typical cheesy wedding songs. So we have stuff going in that we know we have to play, and then we fill in the gaps according to, people who are dancing. Like, if they're dancing to 80s stuff, then we kind of try to go with that within a few years, so we'll kind of go 80s. Then we'll try to see if they'll do 90s and figure out which way to go. And
so your music list is kind of on the fly a little bit, like you're
yeah.
There's a loose structure for sure, though. I mean, when we started, I kind of had in my mind that we would meet with brides, and after like 2 years, we'd be to the point where we'd say, "Oh, this wedding's going to be just like the blankety blank wedding," but really we found that brides are and grooms, the couples are completely different in the kind of music that they want. So that's kind of how we happened into, starting with a framework if they don't have one already, but really encouraging them to be personal with their music selection, especially for, I should say, like the cocktail hour and the dinner hour, because that's really where you can get the couple's personality in a big room in terms of music. So yeah, when we have like a framework, like if they're just like, I don't care, play whatever you want, we have go-tos, but more times than not, they have we kind of want to go for this, or go for this, or go for this. It's like a choose-your-own-adventure book.
Yeah, like usually for dinner, they won't specify types of songs. They'll say, "Oh, just play like Frank Sinatra," or play like Jack Johnson. So we'll know just by saying that. We'll know, okay, if you want Jack Johnson, you might also want Dave Matthews, Colby Calais, or if you want Frank Sinatra, then just throw on other Rat Pack, Michael Bublé kind of stuff. So usually we can kind of, it's like iTunes Genius. Like you tell it to play one song and then it suggests other related songs. So we're the real life iTunes geniuses.
Genii.
Yeah.
You guys are in my computer?
Yeah.
How do you guys keep track of all your music? Because it's not like in the old days where you used to carry all the CDs with you and you could, visually you see what you were going to play.
Between the two of us, we roll around with a couple terabytes of music at any given point. It's not too often that we can't field a request. And when in doubt, if the place has Wi-Fi, we also use music streaming services like Spotify and subscription services like that. So we have a lot of music, but it's we keep a document that has like the go-to lists,
right.
But a lot of it's really just mental.
Right. Yeah, and usually there aren't really rare requests. If they are, then we'll make a point to write that down somewhere and say, okay, we have to play this rare request at some point tonight. But we have everything organized by folders or like albums or genres. So we do have various methods of organizing things, and then we'll playlist certain things. Like we'll playlist the dinner music so that we know what to play back and forth.
When we prepare for a wedding, we have like what we call the key songs, where they're the songs that the couple specifies ahead of time, like the intros, the dances, the most important songs, and that becomes sort of like the fingerprint, the DNA of what the wedding becomes. It's a specific set of songs, so that changes from wedding to wedding, but the songs that we play elsewhere, are kind of interchangeable depending on preference.
You play from computers, I'm assuming most of the stuff. So what media player do you use to, like, what MP3 do you use? iTunes? Do you use media player?
Well,
do you use whatever.
We mostly, between the two of us, we have the same exact software, and most of the time it's PC DJ.
Okay.
Occasionally we will still do CD DJing, but like Mike said earlier, if it's something that we absolutely do not have, we'll Spotify it. Mm-hmm. We both have subscriptions to Spotify so that there obviously wouldn't be like a commercial playing in the middle of a wedding. That'd be so embarrassing, and I don't think any self-respecting DJ would let that happen. So we have subscriptions to Spotify, but mostly we play all of our hard drive music through PC DJ, which is kind of I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but it's a software program that essentially just has two decks that you can mix.
Crossfade.
Crossfade and everything. So between the two of us, we have 4 CDs or songs that we could play simultaneously, plus the 2 CD players. And then just in case, we also have an iPod that we bring in just as a backup. So we have basically 5 actual channels plus the 4 within the laptops. So we could, if we were the types of DJs that play like sound effects and all kinds of crazy things going on in the background, like sirens and stuff, we could have like 9 or 10 different things going on at the same time. But we are not those DJs.
That'd be something funny to get into.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to add the horn to the Lancast. When you say stuff. And here's our guest.
Yeah. That's funny.
So what are your roles now? The two of you still roll into a place together, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. We love working together. Yeah.
What kind of, because my experience, usually it's just one guy. So what kind of stuff do you do for both of you?
Well, first, the reason why it works so well for it to be the two of us is because it can be really, really stressful when it's just one guy. And maybe one of the reasons why people have negative perceptions of DJs is because they approach an overtaxed mentally DJ every time they're talking to them. Having 2 guys lets us field requests on the fly and a lot more. But when we roll up, we're both unloading gear, both setting gear up, and I can continue to get things set up while Eric goes and interfaces with the planner or the bride or whoever to get people set up. It's just an extra set of hands and an extra mind on the job.
Yeah, when I used to DJ by myself, it would take me more than twice as long to set up than while I was actually DJing. I couldn't really leave my area where I was DJing unless I had like a long song playing to go to the bathroom or something. And having the two of us allows me to leave the DJ booth to organize the bouquet toss, or before the wedding actually starts, organizing the bridal party, lining everybody up, making sure people's, boutonnieres are straight and stuff. So my job has kind of evolved also because of this into kind of like a wedding planner, sort of.
Like a coordinator on the spot.
Yeah,
like a de facto coordinator.
Yeah. So you'll see me like running and ducking through tables trying to get the father of the bride to make sure that he knows he's about to do the blessing, and then run back to Mike and tell him, okay, 5 more minutes, they're not ready yet. So when I would do that by myself, it would just be so stressful, and my wife would, when I would get home, my wife would be like, what did you do? It sounds like you were like running a marathon. Because I'd come home, my legs would hurt, I'd have a headache, I'd be just so stressed out. But having Mike, the two of us, if we can, we always like to work together, unless we have 2 gigs that we each had to go separate ways. But working together is just definitely great, a lot better. And it probably reflects to the people who are there, and everything's seamless, and there's no interruptions, or there's no like mistakes because I was trying to talk to this person with a request and then I realized I didn't queue up the next song. So there's a lot of stuff that we are taking care of now that we weren't able to individually when we were doing it by ourselves.
It's a lot to juggle. And I mean, I think back to my wedding and, talking to the one guy that DJ'd the wedding, he just looked like he was at the end of his rope the whole time. And it like kind of transferred to me. And, with Eric and I working together, we can be laid back and easygoing and saying, whenever you're ready to do this, we can come knock it out. Just look at us, make eyes at us, and we'll do it. I mean, it puts the thing at a whole different attitude, and I think that's one of the things that people like about us.
And between the two of us, we're best friends outside of the company. He was my best man at my wedding, and Mike's wife was my wife's matron of honor. So we're really good friends outside of the company, and while we're DJing, it really feels like I'm just hanging out with my best friend.
It's a lot of fun.
There just happens to be a wedding going on in front of us. So, and between the two of us, we have a lot of great energy, and we'll, if for some reason I start kind of getting stressed out, Mike will say a funny thing, and then it'll kind of, put me at ease, or vice versa. And so it's the whole time, it's just like a constant, just kind of mini party between the two of us, just hanging out.
All right, well, we're going to head to break. When we come back, we'll have more with Eric and Mike. WindingWay Books has been a major supporter of us here at the Lancast, and Melody has a great deal that we'd like to share with you.
Right now, with any purchase of $25 or more, you can get a $5 gift card from a number of different Lancaster businesses.
So make sure you take advantage of this great deal and come on down to WindingWay Books, located at 106 West Chestnut Street in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Welcome back to the Lancast with Michael McHenry and Eric Brobst. So, guys, you were talking about how stressful it can be before we went to the break, being by yourself doing a DJ. I just had the thought and had to know, what is your worst DJing experience that you've had? And don't mention any names because they may be listening.
I have a couple that I can think of.
Well, my personal one was actually DJing that high school party with the guitar half stacks because, being just a high schooler at the time, I hadn't thought ahead to checking for like whether or not this was a clean version of the song or a dirty version of the song. So, there were a lot of slaps in the wrist that followed that experience. So my personal worst one is the oldest one, and that's playing just about every dirty track in the book to all of my friends, to about 200 people, at this high school dance.
I'm sure they didn't mind.
No, they didn't mind. It's just like and they didn't pay much either, so I don't know what they were upset about. But it's like they trusted me, and I was like, this is so awesome. I have almost the equipment, I have almost the music selection, and I in their mind, I just let everybody down.
Jeez, but my examples. The one wedding that we did, they had kind of a rare first dance, and this was before Spotify, and we didn't want to ISO hunt it or BitTorrent the song because we didn't want to take a chance with a first dance. So the girl did have the song, and so she sent it to me in an email attachment, the MP3. Mm-hmm. And so what I did was I thought I had saved the song into my computer, but I didn't. It was still in my email, and we didn't have Wi-Fi there.
And so it was like a DRM issue, like the rights didn't play from within the one player, and it was just like that thing where, you had to start the song within 5 seconds, and it just wasn't quite lined up.
They were on the dance floor, and I had just announced that okay, everybody, we'd like to call your attention to the dance floor. I forget how I said it or something like that. But everybody was looking at the dance floor. They were on the dance floor about to start their first dance. And probably all you heard was double click, oh crap. And then we're like, between the two of us, we're like panicking and we're like, what's going on here? And finally, I forget how we were able to find the song.
It was a formative moment, and it was a big learning experience for me because I saw the trouble happening. And in 2 seconds, I went over to my laptop, and the song was John Mayer's version of Free Fallin' live in L.A. And I'm there, and I type in Free Fallin', and I don't have it, but what I do have is Tom Petty's version. And I was like whispering feverishly to him, I've got Tom Petty's. And he goes, nope, it can't be Tom Petty's. This is her song. It's her song. And he got in the mic and he goes, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how else to say this. We're experiencing technical difficulties right now. We're going to cut to the next part of this and we're going to come back to it. And everything was okay. I mean, and I'm so glad that he was like, nope, we've got to do the right one. We can play the incorrect one now, or we can play the right one later. And it was a total win to go with the right one later. It all worked out.
I honestly don't remember how we ended up finding it.
You pulled it out of email into a different player. I think that was what or didn't we get copied to a flash drive or something?
Something like that.
Yeah.
But either way, we saved the moment.
The bad memories just fade away.
It was the worst 5 minutes of my life. And then another one that wasn't really a bad experience. We were DJing for kind of a Mennonite crowd. Like half of them were Mennonite. Remember that one?
I'll have to be more specific.
The Haitian.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So like half the people there were Mennonite, and it was like around Easter, and we wanted to they wanted us to have a dance contest. So 4 people came out. We did the dance contest, and the prize was like bags of candy for the winner. And so as I'm out there on the dance floor with my wireless mic, and I'm carrying like all of these awkwardly shaped bags of candy, I drop all of them while I'm talking, and I'm like, oh my god, like right into the microphone, and I'm like,
and it was a very Christian crowd too, and like anybody who knows Eric wouldn't have thought anything of it, but it was like I remember because I usually jockey the volume while he's out there, because when he's out on the dance floor with the microphone, it's kind of like he's on a trapeze out there. You want someone on the volume to watch your back, and it was like this one moment where I should have killed it, but it just happened so fast.
And it was really loud.
It was like one of the loudest things that night.
Yeah, for some reason it got really loud right when I was like, oh my god. And it was just I dropped candy. It wasn't a big deal.
Saved yourself. Oh my god, bless this candy.
Yeah, I forget how I came out of that. Yeah.
Well, there was another good one too. That might be one of two.
That wasn't a bad one. That was a funny one.
No, there might have been. That's one of two notable. Like Mike was on when we didn't realize it, because one of the first weddings that we did was at the on Fruitville Pike at the barn, and we were there describing the strange or inappropriate things that we could tell the crowd over the microphone to create an awkward moment, and it wasn't even that bad, but he pulls the mic up to his mouth and he goes, "I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight."
Just the mic was on.
It just reverberated through the place, and everybody kind of looks up, and we're like,
they're never bad
waving,
mistakes. They're always dumb mistakes. And knock on wood, and I'm gonna knock on wood. We've never had something
like
major.
Catastrophic. No,
like we've never had a speaker blowout, or we've never had something just kind of shut down.
Yeah.
So we've been pretty lucky.
So what about worst bride scenarios? You hear about all these bridezillas and stuff, and what kind of things have you had to interact with?
We have been very lucky and blessed to not have to deal with any bridezillas. We've had some really awesome laid-back brides that are kind of on our same level in terms of like temperament and kind of just laid back and not high stress or anything, because and I think part of it comes back to us meeting with the couples at least twice if we can help it. Usually we've done Skype meetings, but if we can help it, at least 2 meetings before the wedding. That way we hammer out all the details. So I think preparation is what helps that avoid the bridezilla situations.
Yeah, and I think the bridezilla situations are fruits. A bridezilla situation is the fruit of, planning falling through, things going wrong. And, I think back to our wedding, and our DJ wasn't really responsive to the emails that we sent to him. He'd be like 2 weeks after, 3 weeks after. You'd call him, he just wouldn't return the phone calls, and it created stress for us, which we then passed on to him. And so I'm sure to him we were like bride and groomzillas. But as long as we meet with them and they figure out who we are and we answer their correspondence in a timely manner, I mean, they become our friends.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we've become Facebook friends and actually hanging out friends after weddings. Like there's a lot of couples that we've hung out with like outside of the whole wedding situation, and that's one thing that we like to do with our couples that we work with is we like to get on a friendly level with them, and usually it has led to friends, fans, like people that have recommended to other friends and family. So we've developed really good relationships with all of our couples. And in terms going back to the Bridezilla situation, the only Bridezillas we've ever dealt with were Bridezillas that freaked out at something the photographer did or the florist did or
the event coordinator,
the venue place. It was never anything directly of what we did. Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing cooler than having like a big, like massive party, like a Christmas party or something, and you overhear somebody saying, well, how do you know Mike, or how do you know Eric? And you overhear them saying like, oh, they DJ'd our wedding, or you hear someone else saying, oh yeah, they DJ'd our wedding too. I mean, it's kind of funny. And I don't know if it's how we market, like if it's that we market to the right people, or the right people tell their friends about us, but we end up working with people who are a lot like us, and it ends up creating a really kind of friendly, we actually want to help you kind of situation.
I'm actually thinking about getting married again, just so you guys can DJ my wedding.
Yes.
Rock it, yeah.
It's awesome.
Just tell my wife about it.
We talked a little bit about marketing. What kind of crowd do you think you generally apply to?
Well, I'd say typically it's 21 to 30 kind of crowd. We've done weddings for older couples. And when I say older, I mean like maybe 40s, 50s. Not really what you think of as like a wedding, typical wedding couple. And yeah, it usually ends up being like people who are still in college or have just graduated college. We're both in our late 20s, so usually we end up getting people who are within 10 years of our age, give or take 10 years. And yeah, it ends up being kind of, like I said, the college crowd, people who are kind of on a budget, and people who don't want like really elaborate, over the top, like Discovery Channel or TLC channel, dream weddings. Like we don't really do dream weddings. We do the affordable, fun.
And part of it's because like, we self-financed, our own weddings, and we remember what it was like to have to pay for a lot of stuff out of pocket. And the other thing is that he and I both have day jobs, so we don't have to clobber people on pricing in order for us to be engaged and interested in continuing to do this.
Yeah.
We don't have to upsell or add features and all the new services that we can do. Like we can focus on one thing, be really good at it, charge fairly for it, and work with the people that we want to work with. I mean, it's like a perfect gig for us.
And when we started the company, Mike had just gotten married a few months before that, and I just got married in September. So we both have experience planning our own weddings, hiring a DJ, knowing about what a person is willing to pay for the DJ. And when my wife and I were engaged and we went to our first wedding show, we met a DJ there who had like one of those spinning wheels where, spin here and if it lands, you get 10%. So we spun and we ended up landing on like 30%. So he's like, oh, if you book with me today, you get the 30%. And he was like, and actually, if you book with me today, I'll throw in an extra hour for free. And we're like, we're not really sure. We're kind of just looking around trying to see what's out there. And he's like, okay, but, give me a call. This deal will be good for 1 week. And we signed up for something, like they were giving away a prize or something. And a week later, he calls me. And he's like, hey, if you book with me now, 50% off. And I was like, whoa, okay. And at that point, 50% off, going from 30 to 50 and like an extra hour, I was like, ugh, I don't know if I want to go with this DJ. And then like maybe 2 weeks later, he calls back and he says, 50% off that extra hour, and then I'll throw in like videography service for free. And I was like, whoa, all right, I found a DJ, even though I hadn't at that point. I was like, I found a DJ, please take me off of your call list. So this guy was very pushy, very persistent, and, that guy, I mean, no offense to people who do DJing or anything full time, but when you get to that point and you're being that pushy, you're turning people off. Mm-hmm. You're leaving a bad taste in people's mouths about your business. So we didn't want to run our business that way. We wanted to tell people, hey, this is our price. It's very affordable, and if you go with us, great. We would love to work with you, but if you don't, we're not going to lose sleep over it. We're not going to, freak out and come knocking on your door and say, hey, why didn't you go with us?
Yeah, and I mean, the way that we've done this, we're fortunate and blessed that we don't think of the wedding industry as like an industry. And when you have to work within it full time, you start to get like a negative, burnt out impression on the things that you're doing. And we talk to wedding coordinators and event planners and photographers and caterers. We just happen to run in the same circles because we work in the same spaces, and a lot of them are just bitter behind the scenes. And this is fun for us. Like, it's actually fun to play music for people's most important day. And maybe it's that we don't have to be ravenously hungry for the business, that we can still have a positive attitude about it. But I don't think it's rocket science. I mean, you shouldn't have to get jacked up to go work at somebody's wedding. Like, it's a really cool thing. And the fact that our friends have started to refer us to their friends, we often end up working for people who mean a lot to us. Like, there's a couple of weddings that the weddings that we were most stressed about were some of the people that we cared about the most, because we really wanted to nail it. And I think that's a good position to be in.
What about the name, ProVolve Entertainment? How'd you come up with that?
Mike and I, one afternoon, just locked ourselves in his house on a beautiful sunny day, and we were throwing names back and forth. Like, I would say a name, and he would be like, oh, that sounds cool. So we'd Google it, Taken. Then he would come up with a name, same scenario, Taken. So we were like, this went on for
suggest
hours.
A name, Google it, turns out it's like an unspeakable thing.
Yeah. How about Magic Bullet Entertainment?
Yeah, it turns out that's not something you want to be associated with.
And it's not just the food chopper thing, it's something else.
Yeah.
So it got to the point where I was hours later, and we were like, we're going to have to come up with our own name, make up a word. Mm-hmm. So I started thinking professional, pro. So I kept going pro something, pro something, pro something. And every pro thing I would come up with was Taken. So I started thinking on the other end of the word. So I'm thinking, evolve, evolution, change, all of this. So I'm like, how about ProVolve? At first it was pro-evolve, but that sounded kind of silly, pro-evolve.
There's an extra syllable in there.
Yeah, so I dropped the E and I was like, Mike, how about ProVolve? And he was like, okay, let's look it up. And he was like, that sounds kind of cool. So we Googled it. There is no ProVolve Entertainment and not really any ProVolve thing, but what ProVolve is, it's a science fiction term that means kind of evolving back into half animal and half man. I didn't really read too much into it, but it is a science fiction term, and I don't know if you guys are into science fiction or any kind of sci-fi things, but ProVolve, and when you Google it, the one page that I remember looking at was a picture of a man's body with a wolf head, and that's pro-volving, where you kind of...
And that's kind of who we are.
Still human. So we're half human, half animal.
I was wondering about the paw prints you left on the
Yeah. So that's, it's and people ask us, what does that mean? We're like, well, we made it up, but the background is professional, and then we like to evolve. We've changed a lot since we started.
And it's different than everything else out there. Like, when we begin the intros in a wedding, it's always like, we are ProVolve Entertainment. I'm DJ Eric, and this is DJ Mike.
Yeah.
Like, we could have come up with clever names for ourselves,
like DJ Eric EB blah 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 blah, blah something
DJ
silly.
Mac.
Yeah,
something like that. But there's so much ego tied up in being a conventional DJ that we wanted to give the business a good name, and the rest of it can just shake out wherever.
Yeah.
Well, guys, it's been a pleasure talking to you tonight. If people want to find out more about ProVolve Entertainment and you guys having the heads of animals, where can they go?
Well, they can go to provolveentertainment.com, or they can just Facebook us. Just look up ProVolve Entertainment. We're also on Twitter and all of the other social networks.
At ProVolve ENT.
Yeah.
All one phrase. Or word.
Yeah.
Character string.
Thanks again, guys, for being on the show.
No problem.
Thanks for having us.
We hope you've been enjoying the Lancast.
This episode was produced by myself, David Moulton, with show notes by Keith and Lauren Slesser.
All pertinent links to this episode can be found in the show notes at thelancast.com.
If you specifically liked this episode, we ask that you consider making a donation.
Every little bit helps. Even $1 a show can keep us going.
If you'd like to help support us, you can do so by going to thelancast.com/donate.
And don't forget to subscribe in iTunes and tell a friend about the show.
So, for the Lancast, I'm David Moulton,
And I'm Keith Slesser.
asking, are you in the cast?